Welcome to your monthly horoscopes for your sign. I want to give a big thanks to all the people who are supporting the Patreon. This is honestly sponsored and funded by you. I'm so grateful and appreciative. And I recommend watching and listening for your rising sign first. That will be the most accurate. Horoscope means observing of the hour. So you want to make sure that you have the most accurate read and then your sun sign next. Now, this is an overall arching horoscope for your rising sign. Remember to take into consideration your personal planets, your time lord, the different timing techniques that there are in astrology. So leave what does not resonate and take what does resonate. I'm also teaching an astrology one-on-one course class this fall, slated to be September 1st, 2025. There is a form down below just to get an idea of where everyone's at. It's only 5 questions if you're interested in learning how to read your own chart, because I'm all about teaching you how to fish. So anyway, thank you again so much, and let's go to your sign. Hello, Cancer risings. Welcome to your August horoscope. How are y'all doing with Jupiter transiting your first house since June? Now, when Jupiter transits your first house, especially when it's in an exaltation like this, it could be a mixed bag, I have to be honest. I remember, so I'm a Sagittarius rising. I remember when Jupiter transited my first house, it was definitely it was definitely not all bad, but I think what happened was I overindulged in some things, if you know what I mean. Um, and my waistline kind of expanded. So I don't know if Cancer risings are experiencing something like that, but I would say that is one of the things to look out for: overindulgence, and also just your body expanding since Cancer is your first house. But I have great news for you because Venus will be transiting your first house for most of the month. And I love when Venus transits the first house. So I would recommend you do some glamour magic, get a haircut, you beautify yourself, get some beauty treatments, invest in a new wardrobe. This is the time for Cancer risings to shine. This is the moment for you to say, hello, world, this is me. And I'm sure you had a rough go of it when Mars was going through your first and second house, when Mars was retrograde. So let's get into it. What's interesting is that Cancer risings specifically, and also Capricorn risings, are going through these squares, okay, between Mars and Saturn in their angular houses. Now, on August 6th, Mars will ingress into the sign of Libra in your fourth house. So Mars is at its detriment in Libra, meaning that Mars is in the furthest sign of its home. So the ruler of your 10th is in your fourth. Now, when this happens, the topics of your career or your work might come home with you. Like you might start working from home during this time, or you might just have to manage working and also taking care of your family, or dealing with topics in your home. Now, there is some reception here because the 10th house ruler is in the fourth. Because on August 8th, Mars in Libra will oppose Saturn retrograde in Aries at 1 degree. And this is probably one of the most challenging aspects of August, specifically for you, Cancer risings, because if you have your rising degree in and around, let's say, 0 to 6 degree, Mars and Saturn will be squaring you and your descendant. So Saturn is the ruler of your seventh house of one-on-one partnerships, and that is transiting your 10th house, a career. And also, like I mentioned, the 10th house ruler is in the fourth. So it just seems like Cancer rising is having to grapple with multiple areas of your life at once in a conflictual way. So when Mars is in the fourth, this could have an irritating kind of feeling of like you're just annoyed at your home. You're just irritated of your family members, possibly. Something is something is like annoying. Something is annoying you essentially, especially again if you are in like the first 6 degrees of Cancer rising, but it's squaring you by house, by whole sign. So, like I said, when the ruler of the 10th is in the fourth, you might just be more thinking about work when you're at home, and also vice versa, because Saturn is speaking to that Mars in Libra, and Mars is in Saturn's favorite sign. So there is some mutual reception going on here. But I would just be aware on this day, because this could be you having conflict with your boss. This could be you having a fight with a loved one, a parent. In astrology, the 10th house is the mother, the fourth house is the father. So you might be getting into fights with either parent. So just be mindful of that. Okay. You might also be getting into fights with your children, as Mars also rules your fifth house if you have children. On August 9th, the full moon in Aquarius happens at 3:35 a.m. Eastern time. Oh my God, I feel like I'm slurring my words because honestly, my last sign. You're my last sign, and this has been taking me multiple days to do. So please bear with me. There's a full moon in Aquarius at 16 degrees. Aquarius is your eighth house. The eighth house is shared resources and income from a partner. If you don't have a partner, shared resources and income from your community or your family, or the ways in which you receive money. Think back to January 29th when there was a new moon here at 9 degrees when Saturn was still in the sign of Pisces. Okay, so Pisces is your ninth house. So maybe you wanted to learn something new. Maybe you were invested in learning astrology, or you wanted to explore the world, go on a grand trip. You wanted to invest in a teacher, or you were deciding to teach something. And this was, I mean, you had to invest some money of some kind. Now, with this full moon, this is a culmination of energy. This is happening in the second decan of Aquarius, which is the Six of Swords in the tarot. That's this card right here. The sixes in the tarot talk about assistance and help. Sixes are harmony. Now, this is a Mercury ruled decan. So this is about our communication, our thoughts. Aquarius is a very future forward, innovative sign. And so you might be thinking of innovative, out of the box ways to receive money. You might have already been thinking about that anyway, since Mercury was retrograde in your second house, pretty much all throughout July and half of August. So again, this is a culmination of energy. You might be receiving some funds that you weren't expecting since the moon rules you. Now, the best thing to do after this full moon, because there is a void of course moon that's 22 hours and 55 minutes. I've been sharing this on my weekly astrology forecast that the best thing to do on a void of course moon is actually to rest and relax. I mean, you are ruled by the moon, and the moon changes signs every 2 days. So this is something that affects your physical body. That's why they say that Cancer risings are emotional, or they say that they're grumpy or moody, is because when your chart ruler is the moon, it changes it changes phases and signs every 2 days. So you are a cyclical being, which affects your body because the moon represents our body as well. So I would not launch anything new on this day or start anything new on this day. You don't want to go against the energy if it's not conducive for you to do so. On August 11th, like I mentioned, Mercury has been going through your second house of your finances and your resources, and Mercury will go direct at 4 degrees of Leo. Now, Leo is such an interesting house that I've been pointing out to people because if you think back to July and August of 2023, you had a Venus retrograde here. Venus rules your 11th house and also your fourth house. Um, you had a Mars retrograde here that was going through your first and second. And now you had a Mercury retrograde here. These are the personal planets all being involved in your second house. So you might have really thought about the ways in which your personal finances are dictated by your self confidence, your worth, and the ways in which you give to people. And maybe you should have more boundaries around that. The second and eighth houses in astrology are the financial houses. So this is all about learning about reciprocity, when to give, when to receive, and also when to ask for help. Like I mentioned with the Six of Swords with that full moon. So now that Mercury is going direct, Mercury rules your third house of communication, neighborhoods, and siblings, and your 12th house of the unknown, of the hidden realm. You might have just been thinking about how maybe the ways in which you show up authentically, how you speak, you might hold yourself back because of self-limiting beliefs or self-sabotaging thoughts. And so now that Mercury is going direct, this is a moment for you to take all that you've reviewed, all that you reflected on, and fine-tune the ways in which you show up authentically. You know what they say, like your net worth is your self-worth or something like that. Leo being your second house is also really, it is symbolic of the way that you're able to receive money and the way that you feel confident about yourself is directly reflected in how authentic you are. Okay, so like I referred to in the beginning, on August 12th, Venus in Cancer will conjunct Jupiter in Cancer at 14 degrees. Now, all Cancer placements, all Cancer risings obviously will benefit from this. But to narrow it down even further, if you have your rising sign around 14 degrees, then this is going to impact you even more. Um, Venus is Venus and Jupiter are benefic planets, right? So when they come together, you really want to pay attention to this. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. Like I said, Jupiter is not always about luck. It's not always about opportunity because at the end of the day, it expands whatever house it goes in. So yes, for some people, um, you might just be so jovial and optimistic that you're just like, like some other area of your life, like your body might just have been expanding. Um, Now, Venus, like I said, rules your 11th house, your fourth house. Those topics will be embedded into this conjunction. Jupiter rules your sixth house and your ninth house. Those are houses dealing with your rituals, and the ninth house is the house of God. So this is lucky. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. You want to do some magic on this day. You want to do some glamour magic on this day. People might notice you. I think people notice people who have Venus in the first house. You don't want to sleep on this energy basically because it's really lovely. Now, with anything in life, especially astrology, now, of course, like there is something about feminine energy and having things be attracted to you, right? With Venus and Jupiter in the first house. But this is also a time to put yourself out there, like go mingle, go tell people what you're doing, because the more and more you can do this, the more people will notice you and then you'll attract opportunities to you. So basically what I'm saying is don't sit on this energy. On August 22nd, the sun will ingress into the sign of Virgo, which is your third house. And the third house is the house of communication. It's Virgo, right? So some of you might be interested in um, writing during this time, or you might be focused on your siblings, since the third house is siblings. The third house is a very busy house. So you just might be busy in the month for in Virgo season. And the third house also represents community organizing. So some of you might get more involved in that. Um, the very next day, there is a new moon at 0 degrees of Virgo at 2:06 a.m. Eastern Time. And this is in the first decan of Virgo, which is the Eight of Pentacles. This tarot card represents commitment and craftsmanship. As you can see, this person is mastering a skill. Now, this new moon happens at 0 degrees, which is at the beginning of a sign. This is an inception point. And then a month later, on September 21st, there is a solar eclipse at 29 degrees of Virgo, which is the end of the sign. This is the anaretic degree. But there's 2 new moons in your third house. So what this tells me is that you're trying to birth something new. Maybe you're repairing your relationship with your siblings if you have them. Maybe you're starting a podcast, Substack. Maybe you're writing something, but you're trying to get your voice heard, basically. You're also having eclipses here. So third, ninth houses are also about the houses of your knowledge, your wisdom, and how you can share them with the collective. Now, embedded in this new moon, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, the outer planets, are at 1 degree, which, according to Nicholas Stojanovich's degree theory, that's the Aries degree, which is ruled by Mars. These placements are about expressing your personal goals and moving your vision forward. Okay, so Uranus just entered your 12th house of Gemini, and Saturn and Neptune entered your 10th house of career, and Pluto entered your 8th house. Okay, interesting. So 8th and 12th are obviously the hidden houses. Okay, so this could be more psychosomatic healing and disruption and change in the ways that you think, in the ways that maybe you've inherited some old calcified belief systems. But Saturn and Neptune sitting at the top of the chart there is very obvious that something wants to be reborn or reimagined in your career sector, what you're known for. Some of you Cancer risings might venture into entrepreneurship, or with Neptune at the top of the chart there, you know, really focusing on a dream that you've always had since you were young. But essentially, you have a personal goal, right? And you're trying to move that vision forward in this new moon. On August 25th, Venus ingresses into the sign of Leo, which is your second house. So Venus moves from your first to the second. And I mentioned that there was a Venus retrograde here July and August of 2023. So think back to that time and what happened. Ultimately, a benefic in the second house is nice. This is like attracting opportunities to increase your finances through groups of friends, the collective, a community in some way, as Venus rules your 11th house of Taurus, and also any home or property or real estate that you might own, or selling of a home, since Venus also rules your 4th house of Libra. So I really like this month for you, Cancer risings. Of course, there is this mixed bag of that Mars Saturn opposition squaring you. I think you might have to grapple with some conflict at home or at work, or some authority figures that you might have to stand up to. Family members you might have arguments with. But again, that Jupiter Venus conjunction in your first house is chef's kiss. So I think out of all the signs, you're one of the signs that is really like this is the best transit of 2025 for you, and possibly even the most challenging transit for you when it comes to Mars opposing Saturn. So I'm wishing you all the best. Please take care of your body and your health this month. I will see you next month.